So happy Friday. I'm not wearing a Hawaiian shirt. It's a miracle. I decided I would wear my Troopers shirt, which is pretty exciting. So I've been sleeping in it, wearing it during the day, and it's like a kid who gets something new they're really excited about. They take it to bed and take it everywhere they go. So, anyway, I am going to have to take it off and wash it. But I just figured I'd wear it for you guys. And plus, it's really soft. So, they're making shirts that are nicer nowadays. T shirts used to be so like rough, and so they're like a blend, so they're really soft and they don't shrink too much, and I like to wear them big. So anyway, this is my new toy, my new shirt. I also have a new baseball cap, a new uniform, a new hat, a cowboy hat with cross sabers on it, which are really cool. That's obviously this logo. And it's from the 11th Ohio Cavalry. There's a long history behind all of that. So, but anyway, the cross sabers are our logo. So let's see. I have a couple PowerPoints for you. I've been busy. I've decided to put together something really cool. So first, we will start with my weekend, where I was last week. So as you know, I've been preparing for it for a long while, and it went really well. So here again is a logo. You can click on these. I'll send this to you later. You can click on them. One of them is, again, just to kind of get everybody up to speed. There's the Troopers that are the 21 and under group, and then there's the Troopers Legacy Corps, which started out as an alumni corps. You had to have marched Troopers to be in it, and now they have opened it up to anybody who's marched in the past, as long as you can kind of cut the mustard. So usually it's people who've marched high school, college, drum corps. You can't just decide to join. I mean, it would be a miracle to be able to, at least on drums, to be able to keep up with the others. So it was really fun for me. I played tenors in 1982, and this was my 40th year, and to go back and play tenors again. And the good news was we didn't march drill, which means we weren't running around the field like the young kids are. We stayed still, and I didn't even have to carry my drums. They were on a stand, and otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. And for next year, I'm already kind of thinking about they may march drill next year, some drill, maybe not a lot, but, moving around and everything. And if so, then I'll do the snare. I have lots of experience playing snare, but the thing is, I play matched grip, and in drum corps, they play traditional grip. And as I talked to you a long time ago about, when I was coming up, if I would have been born about 5 years earlier, I would have learned match grip, and I would have learned traditional grip, and I would have probably played that way my whole life. But when I was coming up, my drum teacher specifically said, we are not doing that, and this is the reason why. The Beatles had just come in the 60s. Ringo actually played traditional grip. All the jazz players played traditional grip, but rock was like the new thing, back then. And for rock and for moving around the drums, you can move around a lot more efficiently and better matched grip. And that was kind of more of like the evolution of drumming. There was a period of time there. It was a short period of time where everybody was playing match grip. They wanted you to play match grip. The tradition was old and out. That was old school, and we needed to move forward. And in retrospect, I wish I would have learned both. And nowadays, if you're going to play in corps, you need to play traditional grip. I still teach match grip. It's easier to learn that way to start out. You use a lot of different motions with traditional grip. So like in matched grip, you're using flexion and extension at the wrist and a lot of fingers. With traditional grip, you're doing what's called pronation and supination, and it's a different motion. It's like you're flinging water off your hand. I can actually play right-handed traditional pretty good, just as a joke, and sometimes I do it that way just to see if anybody notices. And there are some other people who actually do that, but it's more of a novelty. So I'm going to this year start working on just, if I'm watching TV, I'm going to start pronating and supinating, just get those muscles used to that motion. And then there's some finger stuff that happens too. Just in the event that, I can't carry tenors anymore. And if I'm going to play with this type of a group, I'm going to need to play traditional. So I'm going to start kind of working on that, seeing how it goes. It'll be something fun to work on. I've never had a need to do it until now, really. I love tenors as an instrument. I find them more challenging and harder because you have to, and especially this year was hard for me to memorize because I'm such a good sight reader, and that's kind of a problem when you put the music up there. Of course, this music I can't sight read. I had to really color code it. What drum am I on? Where am I going? It was very challenging. But the most challenging part was I can play it if the page is in front of me, but to remember. And I practiced the practice audios at a certain tempo, which I was told this was the tempo. Then all of a sudden I get there and the tempo is like 30 beats higher. So it's like my hands can play that, but my mind can't remember exactly what's next. And you have to have it so memorized that it's like you don't think about it. It's in your hands. It just comes out. And I was still kind of at the point where okay, what's the next run? Okay, yeah, it's coming. All right, play that. Okay, what's the next run? Okay, I got that. But it was happening so fast that by the time I realized what the next run was, we were there. And, and if you don't start the run, it's hard to jump in the middle of it. So I found that really challenging. And so I was practicing when we got there, in my hotel room at night and in the morning. We pretty much practiced from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So there wasn't a lot of time, and you're pretty tired. But I had to do that so that I could get it. And mostly I had it. There were a couple places where I could have done better. So let's see. Let's just take a look. Here's our formation. So I'm this person right here. These are the 3 tenor drums. We're all 20 years apart, so it's kind of fun that this guy's 19 and he's not March Troopers yet, but he is eligible to try out. There's like 1,000 people who try out or more for 5 spots. And as I mentioned to you, I'm following one of those people who marched in my exact position this year. In fact, he just sent me clips last night of his show last night in Austin, Texas, which was amazing. And I'm going to ask permission if I can share them with you. And if so, I'll send them to you. But we probably don't want to put them on the internet or anything like that. But this gentleman is 19. He's going to be a senior in his college here in Colorado. He's going to be the drum captain. He's studying music. Great player, really nice guy. And this gentleman also marched troopers like I did, Junior Corps, and he also is a band director down in Arizona. And he also went to CSU, which is where I went, and which is where this field was. How cool to come back and march in my alma mater. Of course, we did not march this stadium. This is a new stadium since I went there. And I had fun driving around town just, reminiscing and going to my college dorm and just to remember all the different places. Some of it's exactly the same and some of it's way, way different. But anyway, this was our trooper line. And so Miles is 19 and Evan is 39, exactly 20 years, and I'm 59, exactly 20 years. So I just thought that was just way cool. There were other people my age and even older. There's a couple people in the snare line that are in their 70s, so it's challenging for them, but they all have backgrounds in, this is like a who's who of drum corps. If you just go around and ask, where did you march? Where did you go to school? People from all over the country came to do this, and so a lot of people are from the East Coast, from Canada, and I didn't get a really chance to meet or talk to too many of them because we were practicing the whole time. But anyway, here's the snare line, here's the bass line. You can see the color guard back here. The goal is to double in size. We marched about 100 people. We won about 200. And if we get that, and we were very well received at this Drums Along the Rockies, which is a really big show, and they usually, alumni corps, there's not very many of them, and they usually aren't successful for a number of reasons. Fundraising is one. So, I'm hoping that, we're all to recruit a couple people, and I've reached out to some people that I think would be good who could handle it. And And wouldn't it be great to have some more females in the drum line? So I actually reached out. I won't tell you the names, but they're well-known people that I'm hoping will consider doing it. So if we do get to March next year, we're going to play at finals, which is happening in August in Indianapolis. It'll be happening in a few weeks here, and and I'll send you maybe one of the other corps, Santa Clara Vanguard, who did an alumni show a few years ago, and it came off spectacularly. I don't know that we'd be able to do the drill and everything like they did, but anyway, I'm excited. If you can't tell, I'm usually excited anyway about drums, but this is just like a level above that. So here was our formation. We're supposed to look like a hat, and this is modeling after a formation that they had done years ago. So Trooper fans, diehard Trooper fans, knew what it was, and we're excited about that we were replicating that. So here's our instrument, the tenors. You've seen these before, and there's 5 drums. Yes, they're heavy. And basically you can kind of see, let's go to the next picture, you can see a little bit better. This is my view of what I got to look at most of the day for 4 days. And so this is the Spock drum, the little drum. And I think I sent you a video a while back of my tenor drums that had 2 small drums here. This is a 6-inch and there's an 8-inch, and they're next to each other. The 6 is here and the 8's here. And I recently modified mine, a different stand. This stand would have been easy to modify from 5 to 6 drums, I believe, at least easier than the one I had, which are Dynasty drums. It was quite complex to pull the whole thing apart. But this one is actually drilled into the drum, and so that's a little bit different. The Dynasty drums, you don't drill into the drum, and there's a whole, we could talk an hour about to drill into a drum or not, and so they don't drill into their drum. They keep it a nice, perfect, wooden circle with no, assault, if you will. Some people think it's almost like an assault to the drum. Don't do that. So they're attached by the rods here, and so it's a little bit different setup. But so here's the Spock drum, the highest pitched. You do a lot of rim shots here, and then it kind of goes right, left, and so when you do runs, it's it's a right-hand world, so right, left, you go down the drums. And we did a lot of different really cool configurations of patterns and things like that. So those are the drums. They're cranked up super, super tight. These happen to be special kind of heads that can accommodate that, because normal drums on a drum set, you would never crank them up that tight. But in marching, you want no ringing. I mean, no like... you want it because you have to project, in a stadium. So you want them to be super, super, and within our section, I mean, we spent about 20 minutes just tuning to get us to be exact, because you want it to sound like one voice and not have all these different overtones. So and on the other side here, I put my original, I know it's blurry, this was from 1982, and this was very unusual setup even for that time. You'd never see this nowadays. I sent it to my little On the Road Again buddy who's marching now, and he was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you guys played that. That's so weird and different. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how we did either. So what happened here is our home of these drums. If you're ever just going to play on one drum, and sometimes we do when we're doing exercises, we play on the number 2 drum here. So the Spock, sometimes we call that the number 1 drum, but 1, 2, 3, 4. But this drum is kind of like home base, okay? So it's sort of like our home base drum, just like the snare drum is like home base on a drum set. Well, over here we put the home base drum in the middle. And the Spock drum, this is kind of a bigger Spock, but it's up here. These were Slingerland drums, by the way, super heavy, about 42 pounds or so. These are a lot lighter, even though they are still heavy. I think they're supposed to be 27, but I think these are more like 32 to 35. The Troopers Junior Corps actually marched these in 2019, and so then the drums kind of get handed down, and they get like sponsored, kind of like new drums every year. So high schools and colleges buy the old drums, which are still in great shape and have a really cool you could say, oh, so and so marched this and this year or whatever. And there are people who memorize, from year to year. You could just say, hey, 2002, troopers, what drums did they, what color were they, and what was the show? And people can spew it off. I'm not quite that, I could look it up, but I'm not going to memorize all that stuff. So here's kind of like the number 1 drum, and here's kind of like the 2 drum. And actually, this might have even been the 3 drum. It wasn't even the 2 drum, but it was like it looks like the 3 drum anyway. I can't really remember. And it's very strange that actually here it looks like it's the 4 drum, and then here's the 5 drum. So the low one is on the right. So like even to do a run, it doesn't make sense. But somehow we played it, and we did a lot with the home drum and did a lot of stuff from the home drum over to the other drums. And the runs were different. Our marching was different. When you go back and watch our show, it looks so boring. And if you go back and watch an old movie, like just pick any old movie, it's so slow. It's just like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to move forward? Because the way our world is now, everything is, even the commercials, it's just like image, fast, and if you go back and watch, gosh, I'm like, if you look at what they're doing today and look at what we were doing, it's just, we thought that was hard, and it was hard, and it was cutting edge at the time, because troopers were known for asymmetric drill. Everybody else was like keeping their drill like in a way that was like symmetrical always. It was just like, it was like this symmetrical picture that like maneuvered around. Well, Jim Jones, who was the founder of the troopers, he was the first one to come up with asymmetric drill. So we were doing things that was not symmetric, and we were doing things with it. Like we made this giant kind of like ice cream cone, and then we moved it across the field, and that was way cutting edge for the time. But when you go back and watch it now compared to what they're doing this stuff called crab stepping, which is where you go side to side with the drum line. Back then, all drum lines were like stayed together and basically went forward and backward. We might, do a few other little things. During our drum solo, we integrated the tenors in with the snares and played drum to drum on each other's drums. And, that was sort of standard for the day, but or a little cutting edge for the day. But nowadays, everything is super fast. Super intense. I mean, the athletic ability, it is truly a sport. It's a music sport. You have to be in shape. These kids are jumping, and, it's just phenomenal. And I'll send you, if I'm allowed, I'll send you some clips, and you'll get it right away what I mean. So, but anyway, our drums were different. I just thought this was fun to compare the old drum setup to the new drum setup. So here's our line. This is tenor, 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 and then the snares. I just thought that was really a cool picture. And this was us. We were at a high school in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and this was artificial turf. And yes, it was very, very hot. Oh, here comes one of my kitties. Here's me talking and thinks, oh, you must want me. Okay, here's the snares. You can see the heads are quite different than they've evolved, and we've kind of talked about that. So they're super, super tight. These drums are not as heavy as, tenors, obviously. So, but again, we put them on stands, and we stayed still for our show. So this is just kind of showing you the tenor line. Everybody's pads, practice pads everywhere, water bottles, our hats. Okay, so here was the tenor line at practice. So this is kind of what we looked like, what we spent a lot of time doing. This was a boot that was in Cheyenne. As you drive around town, they just had these boots everywhere that were decorated in different ways. This was the high school, and it's kind of like University of Georgia. If you've ever been to Athens and gone around town, they have bulldogs everywhere for the UGA, and they're decorated differently, and I think there's 30 or 40 of them or something if you just go around town. Same kind of idea. I just thought it was kind of cool to have a cowboy boot there. And so, well, our first show, we did 2 shows. We did one at the high school, and it was called the Home Show. And it was not a competition. It was just for the troopers to kind of, the troopers are traditionally from Wyoming, even though most of the players are from all over the United States. Most of the drum lines from Texas. And most of them came from the same high school, and most of them are going to go to the same college. And so these kids have been with each other for a while. And that's kind of like the pipeline. So Troopers Pipeline is taking Texas kids, because unfortunately, back in the day when I marched, we had a drum corps here in Denver. It was called the Blue Knights. They're still around. But back then, all the Denver kids, if you could, would go to Casper, because troopers at that time were quite a bit better than the Blue Knights. The Blue Knights have evolved, and over time, they got the staff from Wyoming down here, and they kept all the Denver kids here. You know, why make all the Denver kids go to Casper when most of them are from here? So Blue Knights really started to excel, and this is very exciting this year because Blue Knights and troopers are going to be kind of in the same little section of how things pan out. And you know, the top 12, the object is to make the top 12, but all of these corps, if you're competing in the world class, are outstanding and are way beyond any high school or college you've ever seen in your life. So you know, they practice 14 hours a day is what we used to practice. We had an hour for breakfast, an hour for lunch, 2 hours for dinner, and 6 hours to sleep. And that was, you know, every day for the entire summer. And we traveled from Wyoming to California, and then all the way back to Montreal, Canada, and then all the way back to Wyoming. So, and that happens in a summer. And you're sleeping on gym floors in different colleges and high schools and utilizing their facilities. It's all very organized, and you compete constantly all over the country. And so, this was our home show, which was not a competition, but it was for the people of Wyoming, you know, Cheyenne, and they also have a home show in Casper. But we got to perform here, and it rained, so they delayed the start of it, and then this wonderful rainbow came out right before. And so, and the really cool thing about this show is we got to the Troopers Junior Corps. We're staying at this high school. We were all staying in hotels. The Junior Corps joined us. They performed their show. Let's see, how did it go? They performed their show first, and then they stayed on the field down in front, and we performed our show for them. And then their horn line joined our horn line. We played Battle Hymn, and the place went crazy. Everybody was crying. And so if you've ever been, I can barely even say the word Battle Hymn without my voice cracking. So we, a few times, it's our song, and we sang it a couple times together at the end of shows or beginning of shows, you know, and you know, with our arms around one another, and you just look around and everybody's crying. So anyway, that was really cool to hear the two horn lines together playing Battle Hymn. Oh my God, it was just, woo, drum corps nirvana. Okay, so here's after the show. My cool hat. I got to keep my hat and my my little cross sabers. I have my original ones from '82. I still have my original scarf. We did not get to keep this scarf. We had to give it back. Get to keep my shirt and some of the other components, but some of it we had to give back. So this is not a picture I took, but it was a great picture. This is CSU, Colorado State University, where I went to school. Here's the A for agriculture up on the mountain. There's a real famous lake up here called Horsetooth Reservoir, which I used to ride up to all the time on my bike. And so when I was there the next day, I came back from Cheyenne, and I stopped at CSU and drove around town and got to go up to Horsetooth, and you know, just it was just really awesome. Sunday morning was quiet in town. It's grown a lot, but I got a chance to go back to a lot of different places that I hadn't been in 30 years or more, probably more. So here's the stadium, and basically the crowd, we didn't have this many people, but in drum corps, you usually only play to one side. So this is the side we played to, and then there's nobody over here really. And so it's still a pretty big stadium and holds a lot of people. I'm not sure exactly how many, but even our old stadium I thought was pretty awesome. It was located up here right by the A, and so it was a little bit further away. And I tried to drive by there. I couldn't tell if they tore it down or I just couldn't see it or what happened to it, but I did not see it, so it doesn't appear to be there. Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, this was our stadium. Here's the field, the Rams, you know, the Colorado State University Rams. When I went to school there was about 26,000 people. Now, I don't know, it's probably 50,000 people. It's a big school. I had classes with 500 people. it was some of the best years of my life. I marched there for 6 years. I actually marched the year after I graduated. It took me 5 years to graduate. I had a double major and a double minor, and I wasn't in a big hurry because I was doing music, in addition to, all that other stuff that I did. But marching band, pep band, jazz band, concert band, symphonic band, played for the musicals. I would take 26 credits, which, nobody does. And music credits, you get 1 credit for marching band. Do you know how much time it takes for marching band to get 1 credit? Like, I spent more time doing marching band than I did for any 5 or 6 credit course that I ever took. In fact, I'll tell you a little secret. I didn't even go to class because I didn't have time. I just was, luckily smart, and I was able to not really study and just go and take a test and do okay. So, that's how I did my college career. I have no regrets. I would have much rather been in marching band and jazz band and pep band and wind ensemble than, sitting in organic chemistry when I could read the book and take the test. So I got away with it. I'm not recommending that people do that, but PA school was a different ball game. I actually studied. For the first time in my life, really. I was just like, oh my gosh, I actually have to look at this because I'm not going to remember all this. But I was somebody who could read something, and I have a really good memory, so I just was lucky. But so I loved music, and that's what I did, and I'm so glad that I didn't cheat myself by not participating, and I remember, telling my professors that, I think I've told you this story before, where I had a choice between taking a test for a class and doing a music thing, and I chose the music thing, but I was honest about it, and I didn't say I was sick or whatever. I went to the professor and said, hey, look, I can't make your test because I have a chance to talk to Philip Bailey from Earth, Wind, and Fire in a small room with 20 people. And I'm not going to come and take the genetics test. I'll take the hit, whatever. But he was like, you can take it. Thank you for telling me. I understand. And I was just like, wow, shocking. And I did fine. But, there were times where I had to make those choices, and I do not regret them at all because those are some of my most special memories of my life. So here is what a lot of troopers do. So I do not have one. I probably will never get one just because I have a skin problem where if I get cut, it leaves a keloid scar. So I would have this big raised, ugly keloid, logo, and I don't want that. So, but I thought that was really cool. And they have them all over. Some are on their back, some are on their leg. Here's an old picture, even before my time. These are the traditional drums, which sometimes we would pull one of them out, and it would come through with the flag, and everybody would stand up in the crowd and go crazy, especially anybody who's ever been in the military or anything like that. So anyway, I just thought this was a cool picture. Our outfits were pretty much the same. We had the belt buckle, we had the scarf, and that's one thing that I have to say that I really respect about the troopers is that their uniform really hasn't changed all that much. It's a modern version of it. A couple times they've changed it out, and people hated it. A lot of the alums hated it. How do you balance tradition with innovation? And I think that that's what they've done it really well. Even the junior corps kept to, anybody who's marched corps anywhere would see the uniform and go, those are the troopers. Whereas there are other groups that every year or two, it's just like, who is that? I don't even know. Their logo's even different. It's usually there's a logo on your chest or on your hat or somewhere, but you don't even recognize who are they? And so that's the thing that I have to say I love is that they have kept the tradition, but they've also evolved, you kind of look like you're in a Boy Scout uniform, but they've made it cool. And it usually goes along with the theme and all of that. So this year's theme was all about oil, And it was all, the name of the show is Voracious, and it's all about how historically oil was kind of like the gold rush. Everybody like rushed, and then people got greedy, and then it destroys you. And so how greed destroys you, and all their music and all the whole thing is around that theme. And they make it, and they have a cello player, which you never see other instruments really in drum corps. In fact, there are rules about what you can have and what you can't have. But this cello player is in this top of this huge thing that looks like an oil well, and just getting these amazing sounds. And it's very eerie and very dark, but it's beautiful and really cool with the show. And the drum line is just, oh my gosh, unbelievable. And running, playing hard stuff together. And it's so hard to, when you see a really bad marching band, or just an average marching band, and then you see this, it will blow your mind. But if you just see this, you think, oh, that doesn't look all that hard. Or, I hope you don't think that. But just to get 3 people to just march in step, is super hard, even people who do it, all the time, to get them, their stick heights, everything, absolutely spectacularly perfect. And it's hard stuff. It's not boom chicka. So anyway, it's, in my opinion, the hardest, most technical drumming on the planet. And the players who do it are the best. Drum set's one thing. It's totally different. But this is very, very technical. So anyway, here's our drum line this year. Unfortunately, one of our guys got food poisoning and couldn't march. It was really awful. He was in all the practices. He practiced really hard. He flew there from, I can't remember where he's from, North Carolina or somewhere. And then he was throwing up on the field the whole time from food poisoning, and he ended up with an IV and had to go home, and it was how awful. But we had 8 snares, 3 tenors, and I think 4 basses, and then a front ensemble. Here was one of our drum majors, and his uniform was slightly different than ours. We had several drum majors, which was really cool. Oh, you gotta love this. The 1982 Karen Newell and the 2022 Karen Newell. A little bit more gray hair, a little bit wider, but pretty much the same, thankfully. So this was at my home in Colorado. The morning of, when we were going through Colorado, I was allowed to go home and spend the night in my bed. And as long as I could be back, they picked me up on the highway. And they said, if you're not there, find your way to wherever we were going. And that's, so I made sure I was there. But I got to go home for about 6 hours because we had a show in Denver. It went till about midnight, and then I had to meet them around 6. And I think I got up earlier because I did not want to miss the bus when it went by this one place that was near my home, because they were all staying in a high school a few miles away, and instead of going to the high school, they just said, we'll pick you up on the road. So there I was. So anyway, that was the morning of. So it was light out. It gets light here in Colorado really early. So that was the morning of going back. I was halfway on tour. I still have these sticks, these black puffy sticks. I still have these. They were on my wall for a long time. I don't have any room to put them on this wall, but I have them, and they were some sticks that we used in our show. So here was one of the guys who was carrying the flags. There's always a place where the flags kind of come in. So these cymbals are specially made, and I can send you a video of the gentleman playing them. I think I asked him how big they were, and he said either 30 or 32 or 36. Anyway, these are the largest cymbals, and if you're not have long enough arms, when you crash them, you're going to smash your nose, So he has to lean back like this to do it without, bashing his face up. But he actually played these during the show, and people just absolutely went crazy. So there's some history. I think he's been around and done this before, so people expect to see him at these shows. So we got to ride in really nice buses that had cushy seats and air conditioning. back in the day, oh, there was no air conditioning. People were all over the place. Weren't allowed to use the bathrooms. They were on there, but they wouldn't let us use them unless it was absolute emergency. Just because, you can imagine like a whole group of kids, like for a whole summer on a bus, using the bathroom would be really pretty bad. So, we didn't get to use the bathroom. So, you had to be careful after the show when you got on the bus and you were going to be traveling all night long on the bus. And then you get up the next day and wherever you were, start practicing. But if you were thirsty and you wanted to drink a lot of water, you better think twice because you're only going to do that once. And then all night you're not going to sleep because the whole time you have to go to the bathroom until they do a stop, which is not very often. And so you pretty much are dehydrated all summer long. I think they take a lot better care of the kids now. They have to. We have rules now. Back then you could, we could do whatever they, it wasn't abusive or anything like that, but it was certainly very hard. And heat illness and, marching until people pass out, things like that. That was just kind of normal stuff for everybody, not just our group. That was just the state of how things were. Now we have rules about what you can, same thing with physicians and how many hours you can be on call. And it's a good thing we have rules now because, having somebody on call who's going to be doing surgery who's been up for 3 days is probably not a good idea. So somebody finally figured that out, like maybe our people should be rested, or at least, let's go 36 hours. We can still push it a little bit, but 2 days, 3 days, no, like they don't even remember their name if you ask them, let alone make important decisions. So here was my buddy that I got to finally meet, but we were we weren't even, at first they said, stay 10 feet away, no touching, no, like you have to be like, and that's the same if their parents come to visit or whatever. They are keeping their people in their little bubble because if you get COVID and you're all on a bus together and sleeping in the same gym, you're not going to be able to perform, and all this work is out the door. So they are keeping their people really, like, they all wear masks, all, when they can. When they're practicing, they don't, but like if they're just milling about in the, near the food truck or whatever, they're even amongst themselves, they're all really careful. So this is as close as I got. I just came quick. We did a snap, and then I talked to him from 10 feet away for just not long because, he was tired and needed to eat, and we were getting ready to, I can't remember at what point this was in the whole process, but I got to meet him, and so it was really cool. We've been communicating almost daily for several weeks, and it's just really cool. And, he thinks it's cool too, so I think that's cool because a lot of young kids don't really want to hear about what you did. It's just like, well, whatever, you're just an old person, and but he actually is interested, or he seems interested. Maybe they told him, hey, communicate with these people, they got money and they're gonna send it to us. So I don't know, but whatever, I liked it, and I think that it's good for an organization because if you want money, people are a lot more willing to give it. I always gave money before, but I'm more willing to do it now, just to having the personal connection, it's getting me to be able to relive a lot of the stuff. Usually I just go to my show and I come home, but I've gotten a lot more fired up, and I've always been fired up, but this was just really special and really cool. And he's got a great, great, great future. He's an amazing player. He's only 18, and he's going to be going to one of the best music schools with the best drum line. I can't wait to see what they do. It's just like awesome. So here's the little coin that you got, when you donate and do this little program. And so here's the Troopers logo, HLD, honor, loyalty, dedication. And then this is their show on the back. It shows the oil drill and the name of it, Voracious. And isn't it cool? The A looks like a little oil drill. I just thought very creative. I know I'm talking a lot. Our whole thing, we're probably going to talk most of this one today. Hopefully you're finding it somewhat interesting. So here's the Trooper dog, mascot. He actually comes on the field and stands right next to his master here who plays a horn. And the cool thing was, back when I marched, we had a German Shepherd. We had a guy who was, I can't remember his role. He wasn't a player, but he was one of the staff, and and he had the German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd would come on the field when we performed, and he had a little thing just like this. It was really cool. He's in some of our pictures. And trying to think the name of the dog. I remembered it last week and now I can't think of it. But anyway, everybody knew that dog, and he would actually march on with us and everything. So it's so cool that we got a dog too. So here's the band, not band, corps director, the one who said yes to this, because there was basically people wanted, they've been talk about doing an alumni corps for years and years, and it takes a lot of money and organization to pull something like this off. And so she said, I'll do it. And, so she's got good help. A lot of people, it takes more than one person, but she's our head person, and I'm just really glad that she said yes. And so she's from Boston, and is able to do a lot from there. So now this is my CSU. This is actually, I know it says library. I never even noticed that. I went to school there forever, and I never really looked at that. But the original campus was around this thing called the Oval. It was just grass, and there were buildings. So the original school, I don't know, 100 years ago or whatever, maybe more than that, probably 150 years ago, was the library. But when I was going there, I knew it as the music building. And I would sit right here and eat my lunch. This is where I would sit, a lot of times. So, and just to look out at the Oval, and it was just beautiful. I spent a lot of time in this building. It is now something else, so it has a different sign. And the music building, this is the cool thing, and I didn't get a picture of it, but the old high school, what I call the old high school, this was old in the 80s, was Fort Collins High School, which is really close to CSU. It's a couple blocks away across a busy street. Well, it is now, the whole high school, including the field, football field and everything, is now the music campus. And it's more than one building. And they've got, several auditoriums, performing arts center, and I have my name on a little tag somewhere. I have to go back and see it. But again, I gave money, and so I got my name on some kind of little placard. If you go to a concert there and look down and read on the armchair and wonder who was that, one of those is me. So I'd like to go back and do that sometime. But anyway, they have a much better music building. So this one was nothing wrong with it at all. It was gorgeous. We didn't know any better. That's where I dropped the marimba, was in that building. So, but anyway, they have a really nice, and it's got all these flowers and everything around it. It's got like some kind of a botanical thing going on in front of it. So it's really pretty too. And it's got multiple performing facilities. Whoops. Potential spam from Houston, Texas. Okay. So let's see. Here's the music building. Here's the Oval. So it's basically, I just thought it was really cool. These are the same trees that were there when I was there. And they probably were there 30 years before that. So these trees have been around. And it's just cool to think, that tree has seen a lot of stuff, and they're the same ones, and you just walk down, and this is a big round circle with pavement. You can ride around it and around it. And back in the day, this is where the cyclists, anybody who was a serious cyclist, would come and train, and they would usually come around 5 o'clock at night. The sun is starting to go down a little bit, and it was just really pretty. And that's when I'd be sitting on the little stoop there sometimes, watching these cyclists going around and around and around as fast as they can, because no cars ever really were, unless they were just lost. Nobody drove on the Oval. Everybody just walked there and picnicked out here and everything. So it's just really a nice spot. I'm glad they've kept it. So this is my dorm. You can't really see the dorm, but I was up on the 4th floor. I drove by and kind of waved at it. And then, of course, this is the stadium. There's our logo. Here's the reservoir that I used to ride up to on my bike. And then this used to be a cliff here. I don't know where the cliff went. I think maybe it was right here and they dynamited it. But the water used to be quite a bit higher. And we used to dive off that cliff. And there were reports of people being injured seriously. And I think that's what they, crazy college kids doing weird stuff. So I think they after that, I don't know, either that or disintegrated. I can't imagine a big rock cliff disintegrating. And I have clippings in a newspaper article somewhere in a box of, the article of, reporting that somebody had been injured really seriously. So I think maybe they blew the thing up or whatever. But I don't see any big rocks down here, so I guess that's good. But, if the water's low, you never know what's underneath water when you're jumping off a cliff. Even though people say it's safe, it's probably not. So it was just cool. And I had camped here. Some buddies and I would go up there. I remember one night almost freezing to death up here. We could have just got in the car and went home, but, we wanted to stay all night. How cool is that? So anyway, what you do in college, it's no wonder we all lived. And so then here's another picture of the tenor line. Look how high we played those tenors. I don't think I could play that high. Nowadays we play them much lower. We were using these gauntlets, which are hard to play with. In fact, the troopers' uniform this year, we had them, but we were able to get, we got an exemption. The tenors didn't have to wear them because when you're moving your arms around like this, these things are sticking out and you're going to lose your stick and everything. And this is my good friend Carrie. She lives in Chicago. She and I went to CSU together. We didn't plan that. It just happened that we both met in troopers, and I'm like, oh, where are you going to go to school or whatever? And she's like, CSU. And I'm like, that's where I'm going. I was 1 year ahead, and we did our recitals together, and we played in every conceivable band together, and she was my left-hand person in our snare line. The two of us were right in the center. And so anyway, this position is the position that Noah is actually marching. It's the, usually you put your section leader in the middle, and sometimes it goes by height, sometimes it goes by level. But anyway, I like this position. I do not want to be the lead in these things. I've been the lead in so many things in my life, and it's so nice to just come and not be the lead. And so I was very happy not to take on any of that responsibility or anything. So here's our tenor line now. How cool is that? We've got these little rubber ends. So we, at one point in the show, turned our sticks over and played with those. They're a little quieter. These sticks are way too big for my hands, so they were a challenge. I play a smaller stick, a shorter stick, but anyway, we had to look the same, so those were the sticks that we were using. And then this is just a traditional picture. This wasn't my year, but this is called the Sunburst. I always want to say Starburst. Sunburst is one of the troopers' configures, and every now and then they'll bring it back and do this, and the whole crowd goes nuts because it's sort of like a, something that they're used to us, doing or sneaking in. So here was the tenor line. There were 5 of us, and you can see our tenors here. And this was the, in Montreal, this was finals at Olympic Stadium. We were one of the first ones to play at Olympic Stadium right around the Olympics time. So, and it was a big cement thing that did not have good acoustics, I can tell you that, but it was cool to play there. That's where finals were. Here's that traditional drum that we were talking about. Also unique is this year, and I think the year before or the year after, I can't remember, they cut the snares. This was very unique. The snares have a hole in the middle here, and they're held together by the metal hardware, but to project the sound. So we were doing some innovative stuff back then in order to try to get, now we have different heads and different drums, and this is kind of a blurry close-up, but there's the tenor line. So here's myself, here's my friend Carrie, and I've reconnected with Tom Dugan right here. So we all are like this year, all kind of, when you get old, you start doing that, right? You kind of recircle back with some of your life. So, and here was I don't have this in my current studio, but my previous studio. Here's my scarf, my sticks, the trooper flag, and a couple of pictures. That was like my little tribute wall. This is a little bit better picture. This was taken at one of our regional competitions, and this is a little bit more clear. So this is the tenor line right here. Here's the bass drums. So just kind of a fun picture. There's a cropped version of the tenor line back then. And here's me today. So on a cart, not having to carry those things. My 2 compadres were really nice about helping me out with that. And so you can actually click on this link I think I've got a video in here. So that's a lot of talking. Golly, Karen, be quiet. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. When did you have time to become a teacher of medical?
Well,
how did that fit into everything?
That's a good question. And I recently there's an interview about how some of that, the PA Historical Society hit me up now that I've retired. I guess they're worried I'm going to die, and they asked that question, I guess. But yeah, music has always been super, super, super important to me. It was my first love. Medicine was right up there. And I think, in retrospect, it worked for me to be able to do two things. And I became a PA, not a doctor. I could have become a doctor. I chose to become a PA. And this was the reason why, because I wanted to be able to do music and I wanted to do medicine and at a high level. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't see myself ever as an educator, but I fell in love with education. So I was able to meld all those things. I'm a music teacher. I'm a medical instructor as well, professor, and I'm a player, and I did medicine. And in looking back, when my mom fell, and I kind of was grappling with, what do I do? Do I retire? Do I keep going? It all is finally made sense that I'm in this place now where I get to finally do what I really love the best. And I got to do what I really loved a lot also, and I was able to put that away, and I'm still doing some stuff on the side. I'm going to be teaching a medical class in the fall, so I haven't put it totally away, but I get to finally reverse the priorities. And it's like it was a blessing in disguise that my mom fell and I was able to make some really hard decisions, the move, and they were quick and they were forced upon me, I felt, in a lot of ways. Forced upon me in that's not a good way to put it, I guess, but like I might not have otherwise ever retired fully from medicine, and I think that I would have had maybe some regrets. So I have an opportunity now to go back and do some of this stuff. And also it's changed. There's more opportunities for women. I wish I would have been born maybe a little bit later. I think I would have maybe pursued music quite a bit more. Although I can't really say that because I never didn't do it. I always found time in my life to teach private lessons, to do percussion ensemble, to play in weddings and conferences, and I've had a very rich musical life. In fact, I've probably had a richer musical life than a lot of musicians I know. And I did it because I loved it and not because I had to. And had it been my profession, it might have been ruined for me a little bit because it would have been, you really have to hustle as a musician and you have to be able to do a lot of different things, and I would have had to do it because I would have had to do it because I wanted to eat, and I did it because I wanted to do it and I made time for it. And because of that, I think it was not like a job. It's never been a job. But I have to say my medical career was never really a job either. I was fortunate that I just love what I do, and so things come to me. But I make them happen. It's like they don't just fall totally in my lap. You have to, push forward. But, you make time for what you have time for, or what you love, with whatever it is you love. Oh, yeah, there's Molly sending the PA Society interview. So it was a very candid interview. They specifically wanted to talk about HIV and AIDS and how that impacted being a healthcare provider. So that's kind of what we focused on. There's actually, the whole interview lasts about an hour, but this was the edited version that they posted. I have the full version. We get into some other stuff, but I thought they did a really nice job with it. And things have changed a lot things have changed a lot. So mostly for the good. So anyway, yeah, if you get a chance to look at that interview, you can. And let's see, I do have another PowerPoint, but we're almost out of time. So I think we need to save it for next week. But basically, it's Jasmine had asked about the percussionist for the Rippingtons, which is a group that I really like a lot. And so I did a tiny little PowerPoint on their percussionist. But I think we'll save that for next time. But I want to tell you about my other really cool thing that happened this week. So we're probably not going to get to drum at all today. But, hopefully this is interesting.
Oh, Karen, turn your camera back on.
Oh. Is it back?
No, all I'm seeing is black.
Does everybody only see black?
Black.
Oh, gosh, I don't know what happened. It'll probably go back on. Give it a second because I think maybe it's a blip in my internet. Oh, yeah, I see it off. I think it's going to go back on. Give it a second. But I'll keep talking.
I see
yes.
you froze. Yeah, I see you froze them. I don't see black.
Karen, now that you're retired, Karen, just because you're retired, you got to stop referring to yourself as getting old because you got another 20 years before you say getting old.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that because I am going to make good use of this time.
Things have changed, okay?
Okay. I'm hoping. Let's see. I'm going to keep talking even though the screen is black. I apologize. I don't know. Hopefully it'll come back on. But I'll tell you just really quickly, because I know we need to end here in a few minutes. I did go to a concert at Red Rocks on Wednesday night. My mom did great while I was gone with the caregivers, and I did not worry a bit. And so I wanted to go to this concert, and I did. And I went and saw Tower of Power and David Garibaldi, who is actually, Tower of Power's been around 54 years. He is in his 70s, and he plays like he always does. I actually have a David Garibaldi snare drum. I'll have to show you sometime. It's blue. It's a piccolo snare, metal, one of a kind. It's got a number on it, so they only made a certain number of them. But anyway, David Garibaldi played fantastic. Tower of Power was with the Colorado Symphony. They used to be known as the Denver Symphony, but it was really cool to see funk and the symphony playing together. And then this other group who I'd never heard of, but now I'm excited about, called Lettuce. I think I was telling you about it. The reason they got the name Lettuce, they all went to Berkeley, and they would go to open mic nights in Boston, and they would say, let us play, instead of just one person sitting in with the band. They all wanted to play together, and they ended up staying together, and they've been playing for 20-something years now. And they're the modern version of the Tower of Power. They had a great horn player, unbelievable trumpet. That's what I love about Tower of Power. They have this powerful horn line and this just amazing rhythm section. And, they have some vocals in there. I don't care much for vocals all that much, but they do it in a way that makes it interesting. A lot of blues and soul. And, but with the Denver Symphony, it was just unbelievable. And, it was cool to see. I wasn't sure how that was going to go, how the symphony, was going to fit in with, funk is basically what the type of music it is. And the drummer is from Denver. The drummer that was playing for this group Lettuce is from Denver. And he was an amazing drummer and had a really cool style. So that was an amazing treat. So, two things this week. I'm just like, wow, I'm on cloud nine. Not sure what to do next, to settle back into my life. But the good news is I'm going to keep performing, practicing my what I did, because next year we're going to do probably the same show, or at least the same music. We might add to it. And so I don't want to forget what I've memorized and have to start all over. So every day I'm going to run the show once, and just to keep it fresh, or every other day, whatever. But I haven't been playing drum set lately, so I need to go back and do some drum set because I basically put it on hold. And so, okay, does anybody have one final question? And then I think we're going to end, because I know they like us to end a couple minutes early. Okay, no questions. Hope I didn't
bore. A live link of the performance, didn't you?
Yes, I'm going to try to get that for you. I have seen it, and there's a lot of copyright issues. Nowadays, everything is so complicated, but I'm going to try to get it, or at least, I've seen it, and I can see it and get to it. It's kind of the way that it's on Facebook, but I can't really share it, but I'm going to try to, and at least get parts of it and make it unlisted on YouTube so that you guys at least could see it. So I will work on that, and I hope to see you next week, and we'll talk about the Rippingtons. I hope you all have a great week. I know it's hot where you are, so stay cool, drink lots of water, and we'll talk to you and see you all hopefully next time.
Really enjoyed it.
Okay, bye everybody. Bye-bye.
Cool.